Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I visited the Quake City exhibition at the Canterbury Museum in Christchurch, New Zealand. The Quake City exhibition tells stories about the major earthquakes that happened in Christchurch in 2010 and 2011. These earthquakes have taken 187 lives and there have been more than 11,000 aftershocks in Canterbury since the 2011 earthquake. After more than a decade, the city still has a long road ahead. With this exhibition, of course, the visitor experience will vary depending on who you are, where you're from, or if you ever experienced earthquakes or not. But I still like to give it a rating at the end of this video, from my point of view. Without further ado, let's get started. So here's the Quake City exhibition. It is situated on Durham and Alma Street in Christchurch City Centre. The admission fee is $20 per adult. Kids under 15 are for free if accompanied by adults, and $16 for students and seniors. All of that information is on their website. As you can see, there's a QR code which we need to scan whenever we enter a building for COVID tracing in New Zealand. After I pay $20, I enter the exhibition. So the first section has a video explaining the Maori mythology Rua Moko. Rua Moko is, according to Maori legend, a son of Sky Father Ranginui and Earth Mother Papatuanuku, and basically responsible for causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
Since creation, the Rua Moko has been trapped beneath the sun of the earth. From below,
moving on, you see on the right side is the graphic stuck on the window showing the timeline of earthquakes happened in New Zealand from the 19th century to the present, with all the testimonials at the bottom. As you can see, even before the 2010 and 2011 earthquakes, New Zealand had so many quakes and some significant ones. And here's a close-up of the timeline showing more recent earthquakes, including the earthquakes in the 20th century and 2010 and 2011. Now on the left side you can see a replica of a chimney, representing the fact that thousands of houses and buildings in Canterbury lost their chimneys in the September 2010 earthquake. There's also an explanation about why there's so many quakes in Canterbury, and a panel showing the time and intensity, 7.1 magnitude of the quake on 4th September 2010. So this was one of the interactive exhibits they had. And what you can do is jump on a spot on the floor to measure your own earthquake. So I jumped several times. That's the result, and it wasn't too exciting, so I just moved on. This exhibit, on the other hand, I liked a lot. It's a t-shirt and wine bottle made locally for fundraising purposes. The label of the bottle was designed by an 8-year-old, and the t-shirt raised more than $125,000 for multiple charities. Now this next section is about the February earthquake that occurred in 2011. So I've experienced this earthquake pretty much just after I moved to Christchurch from Europe. And I still remember how intense it was. I thought I was kind of used to earthquakes, and I've also experienced the Japan Kobe earthquake in the 90s. But this earthquake, I felt like it was right underneath. And that's the video showing the moment the quake hit Christchurch, and a panel showing the time and intensity, 6.3 magnitude of the quake. So from here on, it's kind of self-explanatory. So here you can actually sit down and watch short films about the first-hand stories from the people who actually experienced the earthquake on the 22nd of February 2011. I think these photo exhibits on the wall are really powerful, really touching, compelling. They tell great stories, and they really show the damage of the quake.
I needed to have a rest and just look and change my gaze. I'd look out this little window, and as I looked out the window, I often thought, if I ever have to get out of this room, it's going to be through that window. That would be the only way out. And it was 10 to 1, and I normally listen to the national program. And
this section features both the domestic and international search and rescue teams, search dogs, and how the frontline workers responded to the quake. I personally felt rather emotional in this part because I still remember watching the news about the Japanese disaster relief rescue team helping out Japanese students trapped in a building, and the fact that soon after this, the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami hit Japan in March, and they had to head back to their own country's crisis. So across this portable exhibit was the real toilet. I always go inside the bathroom in museums just to see if there's anything interesting. And I'm filming this from inside of the toilet, and this I think was actually one of the highlights of the exhibition. Apparently there was an online photo competition called Show Us Your Long Drop. So basically people took photos of their backyard toilet they've created because the sewage system was completely compromised in Christchurch. There's a bit of humor to it, and I really enjoyed it. So this section shows communities helping each other. Volunteers and students help digging out liquefaction and delivering lots of supplies. And this exhibit on the left-hand side is the spire cross that fell off the Christchurch Cathedral. Christchurch Cathedral used to be a landmark of the city for more than 100 years. Unfortunately, the tower was destroyed and the rest of the building has been severely damaged. So this video explains about what liquefaction is all about. Significant amount of liquefaction affected Christchurch, particularly in the eastern side of the city. There was also a liquefaction simulator, but all of the hands-on exhibits in the exhibition was not available due to the COVID, unfortunately. And there was also a panel that explains about aftershocks and a bit more about the science behind the 2011 earthquake. Some of the panels were really text heavy, so it would have been nicer if the exhibition had some children-friendly labels or panels. So that used to be another iconic landmark of the city, the Cathedral of the Blessed Sacrament. The two bell towers at the front of the building collapsed, and the whole building was demolished recently. It was quite interesting to see the whole story behind this building on how people try to preserve the cathedral, but at the same time it was even too dangerous to go inside and assess the situation. This bit here, they used to have a lot of Lego bricks and you were able to create whatever structure that you wanted, but again, due to COVID, it was not available.
Just to let everyone know, or management know, who's in the building. So if anything.
So this section was a bit more technical stuff. For example, there was a panel explaining a technique about base isolation, which is to minimize damage to buildings when there's an earthquake. It wasn't that interesting to me, but this section might be for those people who are more into the science behind earthquakes.
To evaluate ground improvement for residential construction. What we're trying to do is fix that crust, right? And then the damage from the liquefaction is mitigated.
So this bike here, you could start pedaling to watch a short movie about the event. I was too small to actually get on the bike, so I didn't. But this used to be in outdoors, and by pedaling, you could basically generate electricity to charge the battery running the projector and sound system. So this sculpture here is what used to be a 7-meter tall sculpture standing at the edge of Philip Carter's garden at Clifton near Sumner. On 13th of June 2011, the sculpture came toppling down the cliff along with a portion of Carter's house. The magnitude of 6.3 earthquake caused major rock falls along the port hills, burying the sculpture in a pile of rubble. So this is pretty much the end of the exhibition. At the end, there was a little bit of story around the restoration of buildings in Christchurch, and how some of the buildings have been replaced with new stuff. At the end of the exhibition was a small shop selling mainly books. If you're looking for books specifically about Christchurch quakes, you might be able to find something, but other than that, there wasn't much at all. These were called After Socks. They're merino socks, and they were part of the fundraising project for city recovery. The fund closed in 2016. So that was the Quake City exhibition, and here's my rating. I will give a rating of 3 stars for the exhibition Quake City. There was no on-site parking as this exhibition is inside a separate building from the museum. It was still accessible in general, the staff was very friendly, and the storytelling was good overall. I did find the first section of the exhibition rather confusing as it talked about the September 20 earthquake, but there was no obvious signage for the whole section. The shop was okay with not much selection. I never really had a great experience with museum shops in New Zealand. The exhibition needs to be updated, particularly the last part where they talk about the rebuilding of the city. It's been more than a decade since the earthquake, so I wanted to see a section that focuses on the future. If you liked my video, please don't forget to subscribe. See you next time!